kind of makes me wonder, why didn't they just, I mean, I guess maybe they're testing the grounds, but Red Alert 2 seems like the ideal remaster candidate. Why aren't we seeing that just yet?
I don't know. I can tell you why we probably are not seeing it, but I'd be speculating. The first remasters that Petroglyph did of Command and Conquer were so well done and had revigorated the kind of the zeitgeist or opinion of the public of what a Command and Conquer game is. And they did a beautiful job. I don't know if you played their remastering of that, but they just did a beautiful job in being able to scrub between the original graphics and the new graphics.
Incredible.
I mean, if you're talking about these guys really loved, obviously they worked on it, but they really loved the property. You could just feel it. Everything about it was really well done. So if you're a company that owns that intellectual property, I'm not bagging on EA. If you were any company that owns that intellectual property, you'd have to weigh what the risk of doing another one is. I mean, it has to be at least a slam dunk. The game has to be incredibly well made, incredibly well crafted, and meet the standards, or you're going to disappoint the very fans that you're trying to please. And then you look at the return on that investment, the amount of money you have to spend, and the amount of risk you have to take. It's just hard to justify that when you could put the money into something else that might make a lot more. That's the problem with remasters, is they're great for nostalgia and stuff, but as a business, they don't have the kind of real big numbers that you'd like to see from a new IP.
Right. I don't know if you know the story of why there's Age of Empires, basically remaster, a definitive edition, excuse me. There's something called an Age of Empires definitive edition. There's a guy that was a big fan of the game, started modding it, basically created his own new civilizations in it. And obviously Age of Empires never died throughout its timeline. It never was kind of a dead game. It was people still being playing, but it was kind of like less and less people. And then this guy made these new mods and created new civs. And all of a sudden, there was so much attention to it. I actually had him on the podcast. The day he uploaded the mod to, the new civs he made, they crashed their website. Like, that's how many people were downloading it. And then, 2 years later, Microsoft sees this potential, hires him, and gives him a team, and he creates this definitive edition. It's kind of still thriving today.
Yeah, and that's great. That's certainly a thing to do, and good for Microsoft to notice that, and Microsoft can take that position. One of the great things about Microsoft as a company is that they have the pockets to be able to overinvest in something sheerly for the benefit of the customers, and the fans. I'm a pragmatic about this, as you have to be when you're trying to run a business. Is other businesses may not look at it the same way. So, not every company has the attitude of we know we have fans, we know how people like it. It may not be the most profitable thing we can do, but we've got enough money. Let's just go hire those people to do something that makes people happy.
Because I think there's Red Alert 2 mods right now for new civilizations.
New sides.
New sides. Yeah.
New.
Like I've seen people made entirely new campaigns from the game. Right? Is that?
I don't know. I haven't played them, but I'm
pretty positive. It's kind of wild. Even to this day, I look at footage of old Red Alert 2 stuff, and there's so much going on. Like, there was so much level of detail to the games. Like, there was so much effort. Like, I remember watching a video of someone's trying to figure out if you can sink a ship by flipping it on its back. So he's dropping bombs from the blimp, and then he gets a bunch of them, and eventually he does it. I'm like, wow, they actually programmed this into the game that you can sink the ship like that.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's Bostic was the lead programmer on that. And there's a lot of work that went into the relative. Actually, maybe Joe wasn't, because a lot of guys in EA Pacific worked on that. So it might have been the team down there. Don't want to miscredit somebody. But I tell you, they really loved it. In fact, actually, of all the Command & Conquer games that we ever made, Red Alert 2 with Yuri's Revenge, the expansion pack, was the one that I spent the most time on. And it was by far my favorite. I loved playing it against the computer and against people because the three sides were so completely different in how you had to play them, and yet it really came down to skill as to which person won.
Yeah. What did you play as? What was your strategy if you had one?
I could play any of the sides, but I like playing Yuri. I like playing Yuri because there was a lot of really crafty ways to use the mind control.
Right.
That there was a lot of I wouldn't call them, they weren't hidden or anything. They were certainly documented, but strategies and tactics that you would use that would be with the Yuri primes and stuff that were just unusual, and people had a very difficult time figuring out how to defend against them.
How hard is it to recreate that level of success that Red Alert 2 had? Because it seems like an impossible task almost to knock another one out of the park, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's always really hard. I mean, I think with the Generals games, they did beautiful games and they were really well received. I couldn't say relative to the market at the time they were as successful as Tibsun or Red Alert 2. Those were kind of the pinnacle of the C&C successes. So it's just a really difficult thing to do. I mean, if you've hit the nail on the head, it's not easy to make somebody feel the same thing when they're playing a sequel.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is people go, well, I just want more of the same thing. It's like, yeah, not exactly. What you want to feel is the same way. And all that surprise and delight and enjoyment that you had, when you come at the next game, you're coming with all that, built in.
Right.
And so to meet the expectations of that same sense of wonder and delight is extremely difficult to do, especially when you have to consider the fact that there's also people coming in for the very first time. And anybody who claims that, Madden football, let's just do a sequel because that'll be easy. It's like, no. It is really hard because you have a very fixed timeline and you have to decide what's going to be in the game, what's not going to be in the game. And you have to make things better without making things worse.
Right.
And, it's really hard. Like, it's extremely difficult. And I think the two things that non-game designers, and even some game designers, miss all the time that are really difficult. The first is sequels are extremely difficult to do well. And the second is, believe it or not, casino games with very small amounts of input are really hard to do. And whenever somebody goes, oh man, it's a slot machine, it's just math. It's like, but it's not. It's really hard. Think about it. You're making a game that has to entertain somebody, and the only thing you do is press one button.
Right. Yeah.
It's like
you
really hard.
have to understand human psychology on a pretty high level.
You really do. It's incredibly deep. The payout tables and the collaboration between the audio visual effect and the amount of risk that somebody had to take over time to get that payoff. All of those things are what hits the dopamine levels. And that's what makes things entertaining and fun. And so I always tell people, whenever you think a design challenge isn't that hard, try it one time. You might find out that
go from nothing to something. It's quite
very hard.